Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating collision of worlds. How exactly did ancient scholars navigate the incredibly messy reality of linguistic derivation and agricultural law? Well, we're going to explore this by looking at a highly specific case, the prohibition against shearing firstborn animals. We're looking at an ancient system where literally every single word in the law mattered. But what happens when the physical method of removing wool, say plucking it instead of shearing it, challenges the literal text? It gets wonderfully complicated.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the definition of shearing. Number 2, goats versus sheep. 3, the plucking loophole. 4, Torah law versus rabbinic decree. 5, analyzing the etymology. And finally, 6, practical legal rulings. Let's get started.
Okay, Section 1, the definition of shearing. So, the crucial point here really starts with establishing the sheer specificity of this ancient legal system. The sources outline a strict prohibition against shearing a firstborn animal. And this wasn't just some general, vague guideline, it was a comprehensive, legally binding rule completely woven into the fabric of everyday agricultural life. The baseline definition relies on the normal method of removing wool, which means using a tool to cut it.
You see, this system was incredibly structured and laser-focused on method. First, you identify the animal. Step 2, observe the method of hair removal. And Step 3, determine if it legally constitutes shearing. It brings the sacred right down into the local, everyday world of the farmer. But the law gets incredibly complicated the moment we move away from standard sheep's wool.
Which brings us to Section 2, goats versus sheep.
So, what actually happens when high-minded theology collides with biological reality? Imagine a scenario where a farmer needs to remove the hair from a goat rather than a sheep. The text explicitly forbids shearing, right? But is pulling hair from a goat legally the exact same thing as shearing wool from a sheep?
What's really fascinating here is how the scholars ruled on this linguistic dispute using strict, localized logic. They looked directly at the specific biology of the animals. Sheep yield wool, which is normally shorn. Goats, on the other hand, yield hair, which historically might be plucked or shorn. So the legal test entirely depends on whether the method used is considered the standard, normal practice for that particular species. The legal obligation is intrinsically tied to the physical realities of the animal standing right in front of you.
Moving on to Section 3, the plucking loophole.
Now, agricultural law is absolutely nothing without precise definitions. Suppose a farmer decides to remove the fleece from a firstborn animal, but instead of using shears, they just pluck it out by hand. The text literally obsesses over exactly what constitutes the forbidden action here. If a person plucks the wool, does it violate the core biblical law of shearing, or have they just found a clever loophole?
Let's unpack that in Section 4, Torah law versus rabbinic decree.
When examining these different methods, a brilliant legal distinction arises between scholars regarding how to classify the actions. If you shear the animal normally, you violate a direct Torah law and incur the full biblical penalty. But plucking? The scholars actually categorize plucking as a violation of a rabbinic decree, not the core Torah law. Why? Because the Torah strictly prohibits the normal, standard manner of shearing. Plucking is abnormal. So the rabbis banned it to prevent a loophole, but it carries a completely different, often lesser, legal weight. And that brings us to a really foundational legal concept, the rule of normality. What happens if someone does something forbidden, but in a totally weird way? The ruling here is incredibly practical. The core biblical law only applies to standard practices. Plucking wool is hard, it's inefficient, and it's abnormal. So, while it's still forbidden by the rabbis to protect the spirit of the law, it doesn't trigger that severe biblical penalty. It perfectly balances strict textual literalism with practical deterrence. Section 5. Analyzing the etymology.
Grounding this high-minded legal theory requires us to step right up to the texts themselves. You see, the law doesn't just vaguely say, remove the hair. By analyzing the etymological root of the word for shearing, the scholars determine that the term strictly implies the use of an implement, like scissors or shears, to sever the material from the body. If a farmer merely plucks it, they technically haven't fulfilled the literal definition of the word.
And this same hyper-specific analysis applies across species. Consider birds. The law stipulates that because plucking feathers is the standard, normal method of removing them from a bird, plucking a bird actually is legally equivalent to shearing a sheep. So the very definition of the word shifts based entirely on the biology of the animal involved. Literally nothing is left to interpretation.
And that takes us to our final part, Section 6, Practical Legal Rulings.
So how did the ancients tie all of this together? Well, they didn't just see words and animals. They saw a cohesive system. The scholars linked these rigid divine laws directly to the fluid, everyday practices of human beings. By concluding that shearing only applies to the normal method for each specific species, whether that's clipping sheep, plucking birds, or debating over goat hair, they ensured that the law was permanently anchored in the real, practical conduct of the world.
Which leaves us with a final, fascinating thought to ponder. By linking sweeping religious mandates to the precise etymology of a word and the biological realities of livestock, what were these ancient scholars actually doing? Did this level of microscopic linguistic detail create a restrictive, burdensome legal system? Or did they brilliantly engineer a flexible framework, ensuring that the law was constantly interacting with the practical, living realities of the natural world? It completely reframes how we look at the rules of the past. Thanks so much for watching this explainer.